amazing when people hear that they're mortal, that they begin to really prioritize things. When we find out we're mortal, the idea is not, now let's see how much more life we can cram in to the short time, but rather to set some priorities, some life priorities. Listen to the book of James, chapter 4 and verse 14. And it was talking about people who were making these plans. We're making plans, okay? Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. The writer of James was not trying to be morbid. He was not trying to be pessimistic. He was trying to say, you need, in making any plans, make God a part of your plans. And by the way, the example he was using is what? Guys making plans, go make business trips and this and that. And he said, wait a minute. Where's God in your plans? Where's God in your plans? I love the interview of a young man who was in high school, and I love doing this when I go and I sub at high schools. I ask somebody like Nick over here. I said, Nick, that's my buddy Nick. I can talk with Nick, Nick, what do you, and I'm not going to ask you, okay? I'm just going to pretend it's a guy like Nick. Nick, what are you going to do after high school? Well, I'm going to go to college. Well, Nick, and this isn't Nick, understand. What are you going to do at college? Well, I'm going to get a degree, and hopefully maybe I'll find the woman of my life, and we'll get married. Well, what are you going to do with that degree and that wife after you graduate? Well, we'll hopefully get a really good job and begin to make a family. Okay, that's great, Nick. What are you going to do after you and your wife and your kids, grow up and, well, maybe we'll have grandkids, and maybe I'll retire. What are you going to do after you retire, Nick? Well, I suppose I'll enjoy my retirement years. Well, what are you going to do after that? Well, eventually he's getting the point. I suppose I'm going to die. But what are you going to do after that? Well, golly, I hadn't really thought about that. See, we've got an enemy who's going to try to deceive us into thinking that all this stuff that we have here is so vitally important. It's so important that I get all these experiences in, and that I meet all these people, and I have all these accolades put on me, and on and on and on, and yet we all are headed to a common destination. And Paul would say it this way: be very careful then how you live during this time, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. Why? Because the days are evil. Why are the days evil? The days are evil because they're continually trying to draw us away from God and His priorities to us and our own self-fulfilling priorities. That's why they're evil. So be careful. Don't be foolish. What is foolish? What is fool? When we think of a fool, we think of somebody who's a dunce, don't we? We think of somebody who's intellectually deficit. That's not the way the Bible speaks of a fool. You can have 15 different degrees, gone to the best colleges in the world, and be the biggest fool there is. See, a fool is one who either ignores God's word or does not include God's word and His will in their lives. That's foolish. The Psalm says, but the fool says in his heart, there is no God. And so to live our lives not submitting to God's word is foolish. But the writer goes on to say, but figure out, understand, go and learn what is God's will. What does He want for your life? That's your bucket list. So our time is limited here. And if we had a true understanding of our time being limited, check this out. Would we do less? I guarantee you that's what I'm going to do. There may be some things we need to do less of. Get less. Give more. There's a story in the Bible. It's in Luke chapter 12. And it's simply entitled The Rich Fool. And there was this guy, he had a banner year. He made tons of money off of his crops. Okay, that's how they made money back then. He just had a bountiful crop, and he had so much in his crop that he said, I've got so much. What am I going to do with all my stuff that I have? I guess what I'll do is I'll tear down my barns. I'll make bigger barns so I can put more of my stuff in. Oh boy, isn't life good? Until he gets a message from God. And God says, you fool. Those are the words. You can look over there in Luke chapter 12. You fool. Don't you know that this very night your life is going to be taken from you? Who then's going to get your stuff? See, he had been deceived. He had lived foolishly. He ignored God and his will, and he was living for himself. That was what his bucket list was all about. Me, 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 me. And now his life is going to be gone that very night. Where's all his stuff going to go? He was foolish. He was foolish with the time that he had. He didn't care about his neighbor, other people. It was all about him. Time is limited. We need to establish our priorities. That's what our bucket list should be all about. What are our priorities in life? The other thing is, the idea is make the most of every opportunity. Make the most of every opportunity. Your bucket list. By the way, we all really have one. We do. And it's based on the things that we value and the things that we take an opportunity to do. You know, because opportunity by its definition has a shelf life. There's only a limited amount of time. And you know, what is being missed? What is the opportunity that we're missing? And why is it that we miss an opportunity? Could it be that we don't do something because we're afraid? So we don't do something because we're afraid of it. That's hence, you know, the bungee jumping and the bull riding and the parachuting and all that kind of stuff. Because, hey, I know I'm going to die now, so I might as well go do those things and almost live life recklessly. Because now my time is short, I might as well take more risks. What kind of fears do we have from doing what the Lord's will is? What are we afraid of? And don't you know your opportunity and your time is limited? Hey, jump out, man. Take a risk. Believe in the Lord and do what he has to say. It could be ignorance. And hence, the disciples, you know, encouraging people to read God's Word. Whatever program plan you use, get into it. Because maybe you don't know that is an opportunity in front of you. That guest who walked in, they walked in today and they're here for a reason. And do we acknowledge them? And everybody who's here for that matter. Do we make the most of the opportunity? Or is our bucket list still just about me? They never came up and said hi to me. Must be a cold church. You know, it's all about me. Me, 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 me. Or do we come, as the Hebrew writer would say, don't forsake the assembling of the saints together. Why? For the mutual encouragement of one another. And so when we come and we gather, it's never really about me. It's about God, and it's about serving one another. And the Bible actually says, spurring one another on to love and good deeds, to encourage and to bless one another. Have you come with a blessing for someone? That should be on our bucket list all the time. You know, we're to love one another, and especially those who are the household of faith, Galatians would tell us. Do we come to bless God? Do we come to give or to get? So, you know, what are our priorities? Do you guys remember a story in the New Testament about two ladies? We got anybody here named Martha? Are there any ladies here named Martha? Any Marys? That's good. None. Good. So none of you will feel bad. But I tell you what, in reality, we've got both here today. And by the way, they're not just women. They're men too. Mary and Martha's. Do you guys know the story? You don't know the story? Jesus is at Martha's house. And you know, it must be around a dinner time. Martha's over in the kitchen. She's busy. She's cleaning the kitchen. She's, you know, cleaning the dishes to serve the food. And she's making the food. And where's Mary? She's over in the living room hanging out with Jesus, and they're just chewing the fat. And like many of you, by the way, remember, this isn't just a woman's story. There are many men who are Marthas.